Okay, good afternoon. Welcome to the Wednesday afternoon. It looks like, Mike, we starting with executive session here?
Correct. Mike Moss, Public Services Director, Executive Session. It's actually, I mistaken, put contract negotiations on there. It's real estate acquisition for 15 minutes.
Real estate acquisition. 15 minutes, okay.
Thank you.
The board is extending the executive session for a period of 5 minutes until 1:52 p.m.
Okay, back from executive session, no decision rendered. Mike, I guess I'll turn it back to you.
Great. Thank you. Once again, Mike Moss, Public Services Director, number one on our list. A little road condition update. As you know, the last 8 days, 9 days, we've been in a great weather system with a lot of rain and wind, especially the wind last night. Savannah will give us a better update on exactly what roads were closed and open the last 24 hours. But as you know, for the flooding last week, a lot of water, a lot of areas. A couple of you had a chance to go look at a Barnes Drive road that collapses on us last Friday. Unfortunately, last night we had a lot of wind coming in about 1 a.m. when we started getting the phone calls. So we still have a few roads that are closed and we have one new slide on the Clamor River Road. Expecting more slides. We're getting a lot more rain. It sounds like today and tomorrow, another inch plus. But as we all know, our hillsides are already saturated. So a lot of long hours for our crews on the roads, but hopefully the citizens give us a little patience. There's a lot of greenery everywhere, but we're not actually going out there and brooming and sweeping roads at this point. We're mainly just making sure our culverts are open and the roads are open with no trees on them. But we'll start probably cleaning up a lot better next week. So I'll turn over to Savannah.
Hello, Savannah Clement, Public Works. So what Mike mentioned, road closures, of course, Barnes Drive will be closed for quite a while before we can assess kind of how to fix that and move forward. But we would like to get it open as soon as possible. We understand the need out there. The other roads are Clamor River Road. We have a slide up there. It is near the bypass. The bypass is open. We also have a slide up on Rose Valley Road. That portion is closed. And then we have Cool Road. It had a slide into one lane. One lane is open. With my last update, actually PUD was out there flagging. So a lot of these trees that came down, I think, well, at least 2 or 3 of these roads had power lines along with them. And so that's kind of been a challenge. We can get it cleared as far as debris and trees go, but the lines we don't touch, obviously. And so PUD's been out all night, I know, working on that. And we're ready for them when they're ready for our areas, ready to go. As Moss mentioned, we are looking at just trying to be prepared and ready for the landslides, which we kind of knew, end of last week and early this week. I know that there's also another advisory for Thursday from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. So that's tomorrow at that next weather event. So if we can get through that. Yeah.
Is that advisory for rain or for wind or both?
I believe both.
Both.
Yes.
Yeah, we saw winds, at least this morning, I saw them back up to 40 miles per hour tomorrow in the valley. So which are saturated soils means a few more trees probably. But next week's supposed to be just showery.
Yay.
Just in time for Christmas.
New weather.
And winter's right around the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A couple days.
I saw that there were wind gusts over 120 miles an hour up at Mount St. Helens.
Yeah. Yep, heard that
That's
too.
insane.
So any other questions on those road closures? I did send Kelly the cost estimates we have for the state so far yesterday evening. If you guys don't have those, I can send that to you as well. And so DEM may have apprised you of this, but how it works for the state aid threshold is it's $538,000. And once we reach that threshold, it makes Clamor River Road is open. Rose Valley is still closed. Thank you. You're welcome. Anyways, we have met that threshold to yesterday's date, and then this is just an extension of that. But I did want to bring up the emergency resolution that the board had called on the 8th. I believe if this weather pattern holds through tomorrow, we'll be bringing that early next week to close that resolution and then emergency declaration, just to give you guys a heads up.
And we try to update social media best we possibly can. Our supervisors are pretty good about sending in pictures to us. So actually give, a better update than just words. Picture tells a lot of the people to kind of stay home maybe that morning and not try to maneuver out around the trees or slides.
One other thing, if I have another 15 seconds, I can't help myself. So this year we met with DEM early on with Scott and Larry to try to get a good idea and a game plan about how we were going to tackle these type of events. Historically, there's always a game plan in a book on how to do things and the rules, but how it ends up happening during an event is always much different. And so what we did this time is we tried to coordinate a little bit better. And so this year was the first year that we had a single document to coordinate on-demand road closures, road updates, where all of us could access it at the same time, which was, I think, pretty awesome. This year, DEM extended their use of drones so that we could see some of these flood-prone areas in real time, which we don't always, actually, I don't know that we've gotten, at least since I've been around, which was really awesome in trying to capture this, not only for current conditions, but for future grants. And so the Alpha Drive, Westmore, Lomar area, we have some really good footage and drone images of that, the landfill and some other locations that are kind of our hot spots. Probably ask Scott and his team to go look at some of these landslides that have happened, because we're going to, that'll all be involved in these cost estimates. So anyways, it was awesome to have that new partnership. I think we've always had it, but I think it was just really improved this year. And so hats off to them for helping out and really participating and making that work. So that's it. That's all I have.
Great. Thank you. We'll update you if we hear any more closures or openings. We'll make sure we get you emails. Of course, it'll be online also.
Is Rose Valley Road closed? I know it's closed at the bottom, but is it closed past the gas station? How high up is it closed?
I don't have the milepost
I'll get that for
or
you.
block, the 100 blocks with me.
So I made it in, we didn't go out fish pond this morning. That was the tree that's down power lines, but the slide is further.
The slide's further up and the tree and the power line's farther down. So they kind of have it boxed in.
Power lines are by Witherby, that area.
Okay.
But so they were routing us out.
So since she's not on a mic, the trees were down at Witherby. They were routed out through Fish Pond. Okay. All right. So next item, we have the admin building facade. I did send this summary out to the board last week. But I also made copies. So if you guys wanted a fresh copy, it was a 2-page just kind of summary. I really did a poor job trying to summarize that to the board without that information last week, but we just got it in. Again, looks like pretty good news as far as the repair front goes. It won't be as extensive. We do not anticipate having to go through the inside to anchor the facade on the front down, since the backing material is ideal in order to do a repair on the exterior. I do not have a repair estimate yet. And so this is the engineering report. We'll get that repair estimate from AEDA probably in the next week or two. As soon as I have that, I will, of course, share.
And then is this something that we just file as a liability claim with the risk pool?
So, I mean, we did notify risk when it happened. And now that we have more of an understanding of how it happened, we could potentially file a liability claim, a risk claim. Yes, we could. I don't know. I'd have to work with Shelley a little bit more on, if it's more of just an insurance reimbursable type, or if it's something like a tort. Oh, thanks, Kathy. I didn't.
Kathy Baxter, Finance Director. Shelley and I did discuss this, and we did alert risk pool, but they told us it would not qualify as a property damage. It would not qualify under our agreement with them. That was their first inclination, so.
So we don't have any insurance coverage on something like that.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, so if it was due to an event, but it's not really due to an event that I know of, weather or
No.
so.
And it sounds like it's due to maybe some of the installation. That's what I'm gathering. They don't exactly say that in here, but some of the way that the windows, when they were replaced, were installed, and some of the debris that was left in there and how it was done contributed to the failure out front.
Yeah. unfortunate, but we did alert them and let them know, so.
Thank you.
Back to the item one, Rose Valley is closed at the 300 block, which is by Witherby. So at the very beginning of it.
Okay. And then we can go into the custodial plan if you'd like to move on to that one. So last week we had come to the board to get approval for just looking at a first quarter review of having temporary staff assistance in conjunction with some volunteer efforts. And so our plan right now, we met with the facilities team yesterday and actually had an opportunity to talk with some departments at the HOJ this morning to get some feedback from them about how we would like to implement this. And so we have a rough game plan of having kind of a day shift person and then a swing shift person with a volunteer labor supplemented in between. And so next steps are to actually work through a temporary staffing agency locally and then reach out to our volunteer groups that we have written down. I haven't met with them yet, but I have two that have been recommended to me that I'll be following up on. I will say that that's kind of a new, incorporating volunteer labor. It would be new for at least facilities and custodial. However, it's not new to the county. So I'm hoping that we won't have too many barriers in getting something like that going. I do also still have to work with the sheriff's office on background checks and clearance. Right now, though, I think because we're only going to be in those common areas that as we talked about last week, I don't know that we're going to have a lot of issues with that. So I'm hoping not anyway. So I'll continue to give the board an update. I didn't know.
Yeah, I actually have a meeting scheduled. Savannah's off next week with therapeutic courts on Tuesday to kind of get a game plan of what they have and vision what they want, how they want to work with the county on the volunteer side. So we'll give you an update after the first of the year. This next one's Sean.
Afternoon, Commissioner Sean Rowley, Public Works. Mike's passing around a possible policy we're looking at for telecommunications. So I'm not sure if the commissioners are aware or not, but we have quite a few cell towers, radio towers, and such things on the buildings around the county. Some of our significant ones are, AT&T, which is coming up for renewal in 2029. We have US Cellular, which is coming up for renewal in 2027. And then we have a Verizon tower as well that's coming up for renewal in 2028. So trying to prepare ourselves for this next round, we wanted to make sure we had a policy in place that really describes some of the needs that we've found out through the years. We wanted to get this get this in front of you to take a review and come back probably in the next week or two and discuss it more with you, but wanted to get a general feeling from you on this idea.
I think in the past years, there's just people saying yes and getting antennas or satellites put on top of rooftops. There's really no policy in place. Like Sean said, with some renewables coming up, is like, we had some issues with some in the past of location, service. A lot of times they had to be go on the rooftop with a staff member, and they may give us 5 minutes notice. I'm here to work on my satellite or my system today. So we're trying to put some ground rules in place. And it is a fairly large document. That's why we figured to give it to you today, have you get a chance to review it. I know we don't meet next Wednesday, but possibly the last Wednesday of the year, or maybe the first part of January, we'll come back. This did come from Doug Jensen. So that's the originating part of this. So legal's already seen it. This is a recommendation for a policy in place.
Thank you.
The county engineer has an update for Tower Road and Rock Creek Bridge.
So good afternoon, Susan Eugenius, County Engineer. So Tower Road Bridge, the Rock Creek. This is that old Mount St. Helens
double culvert that washed out a few winters ago. We put the temporary bridge in, and we are now at the point where we have two items I'd like to ask for the chairman to sign. Both are good news. The first is the contract readiness form that we need to submit to the Department of Commerce to start the obligation of the $1.95 million that the state is providing the county for the project replacement. So this will get them to write up the contract, and then we can obligate that funding. So if you guys could move that he is able to sign that, I would appreciate it. And then the other item also on this project, so we had one remaining temporary easement that Mike worked his magic, and we have finally obtained our last signature on the project. So I also would like a motion for the chairman to sign this property document. So our plan is to get this out as soon as we can in 2026 for construction next year. There will be a closure of Tower Road for a 2 or 3 month period during construction where people have to go around because we need to pull the temporary bridge out in order to put the new one in. So.
And is this what was holding the project up? Was these signatures here?
The property, yes. The property signature was the main thing holding it up. And we're trying to time the work the best that we can to be not during the school year when the bridge is out.
2 or 3 months is less time than the last time it was out, right?
Yes.
Yeah. How'd you get him satisfied to sign that?
It was just
Figure
as
out
simple as
access
a,
down there?
simple as a site visit.
Okay, good, good.
No, MMA was in.
It's the Mike Moss charm.
I'm trying,
Do you know him or know some of the family or know somebody that lives by him or know somebody that knows somebody?
yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. When I'd have somebody disgruntled call me at the bank from Castle Rock, and if they were older and we get talking, and if I found out they were in logging, then I always played what I called the whittle card.
Smart.
You know?
So you know Bud.
Yeah. I know it.
Awesome. So green light to sign those two for Susan. Great. That's it on our list today, unless it sounds like the OFM director has miscellaneous, unless you have items for Public Works miscellaneous beforehand.
I do have one question, and I need to talk to my seatmates here. I got a call from Cascadia Tech yesterday, and Sean, I saw the email that Shelley sent you with all of the properties that we have. They're wanting to know if we're interested in if we have a building that they can rent from us to have a class. They'd like to have a forestry management class in Cowlitz County. While they look for a permanent place, they asked if we had any locations that we would be willing to rent to them.
If you want to send the
They're
details.
expecting-
Oh,
They're
sorry.
expecting 15 to 25 kids in the class.
Okay.
They'd have a morning class and an afternoon class.
And the duration? Was it
School year.
school year? Okay.
Teenagers, high school.
Classroom, like one room.
What's that?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, just a
Yeah.
classroom size.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can look, see what we can find. Come back with some options.
They have they have other asks of us, but at this point, this is what they want to know if we would be willing to help them with that for the school year next year.
Starting in the fall of
Yes.
26.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, that kind of leads in another question for us, using our buildings. And I'm hearing that we might have done this in the past. The Board of Industrial Insurance Appeals, State of Washington, wants to use our building to perform an in-person workers' compensation appeal hearing. It's not related to Calais County, has been requested to be held in person due to the claimant's inability to travel to Olympia. Is looking February 24th of next year, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. They'll have a judge here, a court reporter, assistant attorney general, claimant's attorney, claimant, employer, and employer's lay representative.
I believe we've done that once just recently in the last 6 months to a year.
So do we have any issue with it? If we don't have an issue with it, I'll pass on it because I'm sure it's just not as easy as saying yes in this world. So
Yeah, and I think that they were doing it downstairs in that old cafe area, we call it, because we looked at that spot for court.
okay,
It's good setup.
so whatever we need, we'll
We
do that. All
did
right.
establish an hourly rate with them though.
Yeah.
Oh, do
Yeah.
tell.
Yeah. Okay. And I know Kathy, you had something too.
Nice little nutcracker.
Okay. Kathy Funk Baxter, Finance Director. I just thought I would bring, since we haven't had a budget workshop in a while, but we did make some changes to the budget in the last couple of weeks. New information came to light on a couple of things, and so just wanted to make sure that I get it in the public setting that we've made some changes. These are reflected in the budget that's been submitted for next week's discussion or public hearing. So the first one is added employee recognition to the Commissioner's Department, but we removed it from the Auditor's Department. It's $18,000, so it's a wash.
What do we
But-
use that for? What recognition? Is it those things that the
Yeah,
like the
recently,
plaques that we gave?
Kelly might be able to speak to this a little bit.
I know there's different things that are part of that, but the main one is the employee barbecue.
Oh,
But
okay.
there's other things associated with that too. I think part of the
Okay.
rodeo, when they're able to
Seating
go
and
to the
stuff that they
rodeo
get.
and the seating and all that, yeah.
And then on the assessor's office, they submitted some reductions in professional fees and some of their other expenses in the amount of $84,000. So those were included in this budget. Juvenile probation, we removed a personnel change that we had included for a position deletion that you approved during the personnel budget workshops and after consultation with Superior Court. We've added that back into the budget. That's $108,971. And then, those are copies. And then juvenile probation, we reduced some line items in there, trying to offset as much as we could of that change. We reduced overtime, office supplies, and some other expenses in the amount of $16,929. Then for juvenile detention, they brought an update that their budget didn't include the update for that new medical contract. They share the contract with the jail. And so there was significant increase on that. And the amount was $93,300 for their portion. So that's now included in the budget. And then for non-departmental, after, I believe, some workshops last week, the transfer to capital improvement for 1 year has been removed, and that's $1 million. And then non-department, there were some other items that we looked at after some recommendations, and we reduced memberships and training in the amount of $65,000. So net to the general fund, we've made changes for 2026 to the total amount of $963,658. So that will basically that will result in increasing that ending fund balance. So I just wanted to full transparency. We'll make sure you know those are the things I've changed in the last couple of weeks and got everything in for the budget for discussion next week in public hearing.
Kathy, on the juvenile probation, it removed a personnel change for position deletion after consultation with Superior Court. What exactly did we do there?
They said they weren't going to do it.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. Yeah.
What? I think that.
It was a recommendation that the board had made,
Right.
but personnel decisions are left with
We get to control the budget, but we don't get to tell them how to spend it. So we
Right.
can't-
personnel
we can't dictate.
decisions are left with the
It's gonna be
Superior
fun
Court.
next Tuesday. We could see some voodoo math to make this work. Never seen anything like it.
So,
Thank you.
okay. And then I have one other item that came to light, but it's not going to change the budget, but I just wanted to make sure you know that this came up. City of Woodland was awarded $2.6 million of ARPA funds. That's in the budget to be expended in 2026. But they mentioned that they didn't anticipate spending the full $2.6 million. And then on exit 21 is stated in their original scope of work. But I'm not recommending a change to the ARPA budget at this time because they want to come to the board to consider, a change in their scope. And if that's approved, they'll be able to expend the full $2.6 million. So what I understand is the change in scope is to include some items for exit 22.
I thought, when there a deadline on the ARPA?
Yes, there's a deadline on the ARPA, but they believe they'll be able to expend the full 2.6 with the change in scope that they want to present to the
Okay, I
commissioners.
guess that my question isn't on the extent, on the deadline for the funds, but I thought that the description of what those funds were going to be spent on had a deadline of what, 2024?
I believe so.
So we have the right to change the scope?
I think so, that they're going to present that to you. That's for your consideration because exit, I guess something related to exit 22 relates to exit 21.
Okay.
So,
Kaylee may have some better stuff on that when,
yeah,
because
Kaylee's
she'll
been,
probably be with it presented, I'm assuming,
right. Kaylee's been working on,
working with them.
and I got this information from Kaylee that they've been discussing. They were waiting to discuss information with their engineers on the project. And
Okay.
so, but I just want you to know that it came up and I don't think we should amend the budget at this time for that. You may, if you decide not to accept their change of scope.
They are the type of funds, and I'm not saying we're going to do this, but they're the type of funds, if we didn't amend it, if we feel like they completed their project, it can come back to us and be used.
Yeah, that's the whole point, is that if you don't approve their change, its funds. It's about $550,000 that could come back to the general fund because it was earmarked as revenue replacement funds. So, but
God's not gonna leave any money on the table.
I know it.
yeah,
I mean, might as well get to the significance of it. It's,
yeah, but you do have to approve the change in scope.
yeah,
So
okay.
just wanted to make sure full transparency, brought that to your attention. It's going to come.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, that's it.
Did I cover everything? We're all good? Okay, Gina, look at that. We're right on time.
Thank you, Gina James, Health and Human Services. So we have a presentation today from Housing Opportunities of Southwest Washington. They are moving into a new project out in West Longview, and they have a presentation they'd like to share with the board, give some information. We can talk a little bit too about, they'll share a little bit about what their funding gap is for this project. So what we're gonna, I'll invite Housing Opportunities up. We're gonna take a second to get the right PowerPoint loaded up here. So give us just a second here.
Yeah, but it ain't gonna be simple. We're gonna have to go through a whole. Yeah.
Thank you.
We can do it, but it's gonna be complicated.
All right. Welcome. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having us. Good afternoon. My name is Jennifer Westerman, and I am CEO of Housing Opportunities of Southwest Washington. And I want to introduce Kelly Rupp, who has been our consultant on our recent strategic plan. And he's going to tee us off with some very interesting statistics about the need in Cowlitz County. Kelly?
Very good. Thank you, Jennifer. And thank you, commissioners, for sure. So first off, I'm from Pacific County, just west of here, and I chair the Planning Commission of the county. And so one of the things that that I'll be sharing in terms of some of the background in terms of housing need across the 4-county region that HousWA supports. And by the way, it's almost 250,000 people. It's 5,000 square miles. It's the actually it's the largest geography, right, of any housing authority in the state in terms of being able to cover. So with that, we're underway and finishing up a strategic planning process that's going to carry HousWA for the next 5 years. So this was an update to the plan that began in 2019 and did a 5-year plan there up through COVID and through 2025. And now we're pushing ahead for the next 5 years of this. A quick reminder is that state statute in 1939 established that a housing authority is required to be in every city and in every county in the state. And the power of authority is pretty progressive for 1939 in giving these agencies, right, the power to research, to study, and experiment in terms of safe and quality housing for communities. To that end, the legislation regarding housing didn't substantially change until the COVID era. And there was some profound changes in the state statutes regarding the Growth Management Act. In particular, the old language basically said, think good thoughts about housing. So counties and cities could just write into their ordinances and into their planning processes hopeful aspirations that enough housing would be available at affordable levels. The new statute reads to plan for and accommodate housing that is affordable for households at all income levels in the community. So this is a profound a deepening of understanding in terms of housing needs and how they vary across income levels. To that end, the Department of Commerce and the Office of Financial Management makes projections about population growth over the next 20 years for every county and for every city. They project the needs for new housing across all these communities in that time sphere. So here in Cowlitz, we're looking at nearly 7,500 new housing units that would be needed at the 0 to 80% of the area median income level. So that means if you're earning between 0 or 80% of the area median income, and we'll look at that in a second here, we want to have housing that's available for you. There's also a significant need at what we call the workforce housing threshold, which is 80 to 120%. This is where most public servants, teachers fall into that range of median income. And surprisingly, here in Cowlitz, at the upper income level, there's a significant need for housing at the 120% or above. So you can see that the challenge, by the way, again, bringing it back to Pacific County, where I'm coming from here, is that we've got to have 1,400 units over the next 20 years that have to be affordable by households earning between 0 and 80% of the area median income. That's going to be a significant challenge. And from the planning department, what we're looking at is significant changes in zoning, permitting, fee structures, to accommodate more flexible development opportunities.
Is this, go ahead, Rick.
Are these coming from Department of Congress or Commerce?
The Department of Commerce, the Office of Financial Management.
Yeah, you're running it through their.
They have a tool.
Coming from the counties, right?
It's coming from Olympia.
That's what the counties are supposed to have.
Exactly. And they're giving, by the way, they're giving a flexibility to the county to choose a low, medium, or high population projection. And anywhere within that range. These are the medium, by the way.
Yeah.
These are medium projections, which I believe is what most jurisdictions use the medium. And I believe you're using that as well. I certainly know that Woodland is and so forth. Is that helpful?
Yeah, I just want to clear that it's actually not data coming from counties, it's coming from the Department of Commerce.
Correct. Now, in particular, here in Cowlitz, because we're dominated by Longview, Kelso, and Woodland and Kalama, right, in terms of city municipal jurisdictions, there comes a question about where is this housing going to be located, going to be needed? And the research I want to share here is that the projection is that you all in unincorporated Cowlitz County are going to grow significantly. And, you know, again, we're looking at here, it could be anywhere between 15, even to 30,000. That's a huge range, but at least 15 and perhaps as many as 30,000 that are going to be coming into the unincorporated areas of the county. And again, coming back from where I'm coming from Pacific County, you know, we're less concerned about what the cities have to work with, right? Knowing that they have sewer, they have water supplies, so they're able to get density into their housing. And in unincorporated areas, we have to deal with septic. We have to deal with the, you know, roadways that may or may not be substantial for this kind of, that kind of value. So it's a positive story from a growth standpoint that you are growing significantly, you know, and the challenge, of course, is where are we going to put those folks?
Can we go back to the previous
Sure.
slide? Are they using earned income to determine these numbers, or is it just income from all sources?
All sources.
All
Yeah.
sources of income.
This is
not
the
just-
data is built upon the U.S. Census Bureau, their American Community Survey, the ACS. And so the American Community Survey is it's a time-honored survey of household information, household demographics.
Mhm. And then on the slide that we were just on, not to disagree with you, but I would say that we have more people leaving Washington State than we do moving to Washington State because of the political environment that we have. I think that that's a pretty ambitious growth projection in my own personal opinion, just based on what I'm seeing with people within our communities actually leaving. I'm not contending that we absolutely need more inventory for housing. I agree 100%, but I think that those numbers are pretty ambitious for whoever came up with that.
And so to that point, right, is that, again, I don't want to contest, where we're going at the state level. I just wanted to keep it focused on the county, right, and the needs you have here. Because this is the data that really catches my eye as a demographer, right? We've got 60% of Cowlitz County residents are working outside the county. And 40% of the Cowlitz workers, 40% of the workers who are employed in the county, right, commute into the county. This is kind of the good news or bad news about being on the I-5 corridor, right? Is you have rail, you have natural gas, you have easy transit up and down. And the ability of that movement of people, right, is an interesting characteristic in terms of the housing needs and the transit needs, as well as the taxing needs. So this is a phenomenon that I know you're wrestling with. You all are viewed as a very attractive neighboring suburban community to both Olympia to the north and Vancouver, Portland to the south. And if you look at the housing prices here, which you're seeing here, compared to, and the rental units or pricing here, you become very attractive relative to this. And this is really seen, I know you see this in Woodland, from the pressures that they're receiving there in terms of folks moving up from Clark County and commuting into Portland. We happen to have, my family has good friends with folks who are targeting rental houses here in Longview area, right? Specifically to serve Portland commuters, Portland workers, right? So what's happening here is this spillover effect is that you're going down to Vancouver, Portland, or up to Olympia, and you're earning a higher salary. You're able to afford more housing. And that's coming in to put pressures on folks who are employed locally. So this is the foundation here that it's a good story relative to growth. It's exciting, what is happening here in the county relative to growth. The challenge, of course, is where will residents find affordable housing given housing pressures from neighboring communities? And so just dealing with this, the demographics that Housewell works with across the 4 counties, across the 5,000 square miles, right, that they do work, are presented here. You've got Washington State, and by the way, the brand new numbers just came out. Washington State median household income it's above 100,000 now, across the state. Here, right, you can see in Cowlitz, we're pushing 80,000. And that's, by the way, that's up 44% from 5 years ago. Okay. You've got Lewis at 79, you've got Wahkiakum and Pacific, lagging that. But this is the median. This is the midpoint, right? So you've got half the population is higher and half the population is lower. The HUD data from the feds, right, housing and urban development data, is actually projected, it's higher, it's scored higher. They're using some of the same data, but the calculus they use to manipulate, and to calculate that determines a larger number. So HUD is at $86,000 as the median family income here in Cowlitz, right? And you can see that it's also up 50% from just 5 years ago. So significant increases in housing. Now, in incomes. Now, housing pricing. However, you know, $419,000 now is your median here in Cowlitz County. As we saw in the earlier slides, it's significantly under what Vancouver, Portland is. But it's, you know, these are extraordinary prices just from my recollection. And they're up 27%. But good news is they've softened somewhat, by the way. This chart a few months ago would have shown an increase of maybe close to $450,000, $460,000. So there is some softening coming into the market, which is healthy. And you can see, by the way, relative to the rest of Washington State, which is dominated by, you know, this Puget Sound area, right? You know, you got housing there at almost $650,000. So median price per square foot, let's just take out the McMansions here, right? We're looking at building cost of pushing $270 a square foot. This is a long way from the old rule of thumb of $100 a square foot that we used to work with, right? You know, in years past. And you just try building anything with prevailing wage or under Davis-Bacon, you know, when you're dealing with even higher cost. We just completed at a senior center in Pacific County, a small building addition that was $400 a square foot, even in Pacific County, right? And nothing special, you know, it's the single one-story addition. So the median price per square foot and building cost considerably increased. The good news here, this is also alleviating as we get through some of the supply chain issues that we had in COVID and so forth. But still, we project the increases to not rise as high, not rise as fast, but they're still extraordinarily high. So to that end, let's think about the households that are having to live here, right? The red bars are the ones that concern us the most. Those are households that are paying more than 50% of everything they're bringing in on housing. And we're looking here at 22% of the Cowlitz County renters are paying more than 50% of their household income. By the way, the yellow bars, the 30 to 55%, you are classified by state statute as being cost burdened if you're paying more than 30% of your household income on housing cost. So you've got 25% that are considered cost burden. You've got 22% that are paying more than 50% of their income. And then of course, you know, there's 5% that are just, there's just no data we have for here. So it's a significant burden already, housing cost pressures for renters. Couple that with this interesting data relative to housing stock that we're working with across our 4 counties, across the Howzo 4 counties, we have a significant stock that is old. So you've got, you know, here in Cowlitz, almost a third of all the housing, right, is 60 years plus in age. Compare that to the state overall at 20%. And you can see even across all the Howzo counties, right, we're left with a lot of mobile homes, a lot of very old structures. And what does that mean relative to electrical standards, plumbing, access, egress, roofing? So as we all know, given all this precipitation we've had to deal with just even this past couple of weeks here, right, you know, the flooding issues and maintenance issues that have to deal with some of these older homes is significant.
I need to chime in because I'm struggling with some of this data. What's the demographic of the people that are going to be part of this project that we want to talk about? I mean, are the people in Sunrise Village running down and working in Vancouver, are they commuter people? I don't see them as commuter people. We have other houses. I think we're talking about 2 different demographics, and I'm really more interested in what we're trying to serve with this project. I get the stats of our housing around here, but this isn't what I don't see them as the commuter demographic. It's a different people, as people struggling to find homes and people struggling to be housed. It's not people working down there and don't want to pay the prices down here, so they travel up here. it feels like we're talking about two different things. And so I'm spinning my wheels of why we're going over this and why we're not talking about this project and what it's supposed to do.
Can you give me a few more minutes just to finish through this? And just, because I think the picture will be clear in terms of where we're
I
at.
doubt it, but you can have your minutes.
Thank you. So the aging of the housing is some of the structures, and the type of housing that's available to us across the 4 counties is significant. We have a much higher ratio of mobile homes, right, relative to the rest of the state. And again, as we can appreciate, the quality of mobile homes and how fast they age, how poorly they age in our climate is significant here. So rental availability relative to, this is a very positive note, is that today the rental units in Cowlitz County is right at where they want to be at statewide. This is good news today. This is good news that the rentals are available. Again, we talked about the aging of the housing stock. The point I want to make here again is with respect to, and again, this goes, to Commissioner Dahl, this goes directly to your question here. If I've got 2/3 of the housing is at this age, right? And I'm a local resident trying to find affordable, safe, quality housing, right? Can I afford to stay there? Can I afford to upkeep the place? So, median age. The good news here is that you are a young county certainly relative to us in Pacific, right? Where we're definitely very much a retirement age in that retirement community. But that age is creeping up. By 2050, you're projected to have nearly 1/3 of your population 60 plus. And that, that's a significant, the point of that rise in age leads into what that age will be able to afford and how that age will be able to deal with. So even today, 29% of your population age 65 plus has an ambulatory disability, which means they have a mobility issue. And so what does that mean in terms of the housing needs that they have relative to ramps, relative to kitchen and bathroom, relative to ability to navigate stairs, and relative the ability to even to maintain the homes. Again, many of which we're trying to show here are older. So we start moving on then to poverty guidelines and just what in terms of where the monies are coming from. And again, Commissioner Dahl, speaks to your question about the community that we're trying to serve here, right? We are a poor set of counties relative to the state overall in terms of household poverty. We're running here in Cowlitz at 8.5% of all the families here in the county, right, are at the poverty level above the state level. You can see there at 6.4. Good news is it's actually, you're still quite lower than certainly than even your neighbor to the north and at Wahkiakum to the west. Poverty prevalence amongst families, as we noted here in the cities, you start looking at significant, concentrations then of where some of the pockets of poverty are. So again, Commissioner, to your point, these are not the commuters here. These are folks who are largely, having to find work and employment here locally, and of course, trying to find housing here locally. So to that point, we bridge to the properties that Houseway manages. Houseway, as Jennifer will share here earlier, is probably the largest landlord across the 4 counties. We're looking at 543 rental units that are being offered across the 4 counties. A significant, volume of properties across the areas. The vouchers that are also available to support housing across the 4 counties, right? The number is going to be well under 1,500, right? Is that, 1,500. So right at 1,500 here. So we're looking at across all the populations we're trying to support, these numbers from HUD currently are available. The question remains in terms of what what this administration will be able to offer in terms of cutbacks of HUD vouchers that might be coming in the future. So the line I want to get to here is that amongst the communities that House was currently serving, you've got 80% in the upper right there. 80% of all the individuals being served today are either elderly or disabled. So they're not the healthy commuters that are coming in and out. So they're the ones, though, that are needing to find quality, safe housing here in the community at an income you can see here of $16,000. So that's even after we put a roof over their heads. They've got $16,000 on average to deal with everything else. That's food, transportation, medical, schooling. So a significantly impoverished community is being served by Housewood today. And the pressures, as I hope I've described here, upon the housing in the future are significant. Not just from, the spillover effect coming from, the counties to the south, but also just from the age and the need to maintain and support the housing that they've got today. So with that, let me pass it over to Jennifer, and I'll presentation.
One other thing, because I'm not of the understanding that housing authorities are required by RCW in every city. I understand, the way I understand it is housing authorities, it lays out how they can be implemented, but it's not a requirement. You can't have a county without a housing authority.
That's correct.
Okay, well, you told us it was required.
It's required, yes, that every county and municipality has to have a housing authority.
So state, if I have a county and we don't have a housing authority, the state will come after us?
It's not an issue. I mean, there is a housing authority in every jurisdiction. And for
You're
example,
telling me it's required, and my understanding is the state RCW lays out how they're implemented, but doesn't require. It's
yes,
not
it requires
requirement.
a housing authority be present.
Well, I would disagree with you.
Is that right? Yeah. But there clearly are interlocal agreements between, for example, in Pacific County, we have interlocal agreements amongst all the jurisdictions to ensure that there is a housing authority.
I get interlocal agreements. You're just, if we're talking RCW, I don't agree with what you're telling me.
Very good.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'll do my best. Thank you. And I will talk about the project now. We were trying to give you the spiel that we didn't get a chance to give you about our strategic plan prior. So I also cut mine down, way down, my presentation way down. So this will be short. First of all, this is Sunrise Village. If you haven't seen it, I know many of you have. And that's our most recent development. And this is PowerPoint. It's not the right. Just a second, this isn't the right version.
You want a PDF?
This is a PDF. This is a PDF.
So choose the one that says 12/17/25.
Thank you.
Yep.
That's the publisher version, I bet. Pull it open. Okay. Okay, just go back to the other one. It's fine. I'll manage it. It's the only one that's there. Oh.
You want the one that was right next to it?
It wouldn't open. It wouldn't open.
I have the one,
That we sent you.
yeah,
Let's do that.
that one.
Yeah.
Called Bailey's USB. I'll just stick what you see up.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, let me just start over. We are Housing Opportunities of Southwest Washington, and we cover Cowlitz, Pacific, Wahkiakum, and Lewis counties. And we have been Cowlitz County's housing authority since 1987, by virtue of a ordinance or resolution that was passed in that year. Next slide. And this is our newest development, Sunrise Village. Next. 40 units at Sunrise Village, and I have some additional information for you on Sunrise Village before we talk about the new project, if you'll go next. So first of all, we started leasing. We opened the waiting list for Sunrise Village in April of 2025, and we received over 1,200 applications. And then in July, we began leasing, and by October, we were 100% leased, and we remain 100% leased on that property with a very healthy waiting list. I also just wanted to show you some statistics for our property occupancy across the board, and this is our audited financials results. And so we tend to keep a higher occupancy percentage than the market. The market typically aims for 95%, and as you can see, we're hitting over 95% every year on the right side of this graph. So this year, our year is the fiscal year, the same as the federal fiscal year, and we ended at 97% occupied. Next slide. So who is living in Sunrise Village? We get this question a lot, so we tried to break it down for you. We had 20 units set aside for homelessness in Sunrise Village. We actually housed 23 units with people from homelessness. 3 of those came directly from Hope Village. We also have units that are set aside for domestic violence. And then we have 45 children in the complex. 23 of those children were prior in homelessness. We have 10 elderly head of households, and that's for the 10 units that we set aside for the elderly. There's a significant need for elderly households, so in our next project, we would be looking at setting aside more for elderly. We also have 10 disabled head of households and 14 total disabled tenants. Next slide.
See, and that's the point I was trying to get to. Your demographic you're trying to serve isn't like the development out in Castle Rock that the private developer builds. You're serving a different people, so I know.
Yep. So then we have a supportive services department. We do our own supportive services at HOSWA, and the purpose of our supportive services department is 1, to run our homeless veterans program, and then 2, to ensure that our residents aren't cycling through or back out. We want to make sure that when we get people into housing, they stay in housing and they're successful in housing. And so we have a supportive services program, and the county is helping us to fund that for the first 3 years of this project. So you guys gave us $60,000 for services. We very much appreciate that. We've divided among 3 years, so $20,000 each year. We have a half-time services person that has an office on site. And They work on a variety of stuff. In the beginning, when the people move in, they're working on stability issues, right? A lot of people coming from homelessness, they don't have furniture, aren't hooked up to services, they don't have food. So there's a lot of that stuff happening in the beginning. And then as people get more stable, then we start transitioning to, okay, what do we need to get these people stable for the long term? Do they need education assistance and hooked up with to get their GED? Do they need some guidance for resume writing so they can find jobs? And then, as we go through, we move them through to dealing with self-sufficiency issues. Our hope isn't that unless people are elderly and disabled, we are eventually going to move them on and out, and that opens up space for additional people. So we have an entire team at Hoswa that works on self-sufficiency, and it is one of our biggest priorities for this year. For Sunrise Village, I just wanted to point out what has happened at Sunrise Village with services so far. We've been blessed with a good partner in Longview Presbyterian Church who donated the land for the project, and they have provided something to 55% of the residents there, whether that be furniture. Mostly it's furniture. They took in donations for furniture and helped people get actually set up in the houses. And then it's also been some cash assistance to help them with deposits and such. The services person has also hooked people up with food assistance, elderly and disabled services, in some cases government benefits, and whatever that last one says that I can't see. Oh, there we go. Parenting and family services. So that would be parenting classes and or daycare so that they can do other things. Oh, it's not me. Next slide, please. Thank you. And the other thing that the services person does is a newsletter periodically so that people know where to go for resources. I do know that our services person has met with every single person at Sunrise Village. We can't force them to take services, but we can offer it to everyone. And I did just have one, if you don't mind, one little quick special story. We did house someone, and this person came from Hope Village, who was a working person her entire life, had a job, and then found herself elderly and injured, severely impaired in vision from a fall off of a ladder. And she just didn't even really know how to get help. She said, I didn't know how to be homeless. So at Hope Village and then in Sunrise Village, she got help from case managers in both places, and she's now undergone 2 eye surgeries. She's regained vision in one eye, and she's been approved by her doctor to try and get her driver's license back. So just a neat one. Next. Okay, I did want to give you a little background on how we fund affordable housing because I haven't gotten to talk to you about that as much. Next. So the way housing works for developing affordable housing in this jurisdiction is we have to combine multiple sources in order to reduce debt and keep the rents affordable. In other jurisdictions, rents are higher, and so you need less upfront in order to make it work. But here, we really have to combine a number of sources, and most of our properties have between 4 and 7 layers of funding. Our main funding sources are from the state. So the Housing Trust Fund is in almost every single property that we own. And then the largest funding source of 3 properties that we own so far, and hopefully of the next one, is the low-income housing tax credit. And I'll talk a little bit more about how that works. The applications for those 2 funding sources are incredibly competitive. And one of the main things that they want to see is an investment from the community, that the community is invested in the project and wants the project to happen. And that is exactly why we were able to get Sunrise Village funded. You helped us to be more competitive by providing funding on that project, as did the city of Longview. And that did not go unnoticed to the state, and we got funded. We are competing when we go up for funding against communities like Yakima and Olympia, which is pretty stiff competition. So then we layer the funding sources. We use fund like the Federal Home Loan Bank. There's a typo there, but Federal Home Loan Bank is one of the sources that we use sometimes. Home and CDBG, if those are available in the local area. Foundation dollars when we can. Congressional appropriations, conventional loans. We can defer our developer fee, and that helps to fund the project. And then two really helpful funding sources is Washington State has made it possible to do 1406, which is local jurisdictions keeping part of the recording fees, I believe, which you guys have. And then the 0.1% sales tax for affordable housing, which we have in Longview, and a lot of dollars are programmed into this project. Next. And just because this question comes up all the time. So what are low-income housing tax credits? This is where most of the money is coming from, and why are they important? In my opinion, they are the most critical resource that has come about in housing. I've been in housing for 25 years. And at this point, the IRS is the greatest funder of affordable housing in the country based on these tax credits. So the way that it works is we make an application to the Washington State Housing Finance Commission. Well, first of all, the federal government allocates tax credits to WSFIC and to each state and tells them how many they have. We make an application to WSFIC for those credits. If they award us tax credits, then we go out looking for an investor. We do an RFP for an investor. And the investor comes in and they'll tell us how much they'll give us on the dollar of that tax deduction. So lately, it's been running around 81 cents to the dollar, 83 cents to the dollar. And it really depends on how badly they need tax deductions. In this environment with where taxes have just been cut recently, they don't need the tax credits as much, so it's gotten a lot more competitive. So once you get those.
Banks supplied a lot.
The banks.
Yeah.
Yes, it's mostly the banks.
Sunrise
So
Village.
all of our partners are, all of our projects are three. Our investor is US Bank.
Yeah.
And they've been a good partner. And they bring the majority of the money into the project. I believe it was 10 million to Sunrise Village. So then we construct the project and then we lease the project, and the lease up is critical because we have to make sure that we have people that qualify in the units and that all of our paperwork is correct. And that's a special skill that our staff has learned to be very accurate on, because if you mess that up, even 20 years down the road, they can come back and recapture the tax credits and you can owe money to the investor for the tax credits. And in this particular lease up for Sunrise Village, I have to brag on my staff because when the files went to the investor for review, even though they're using the most stringent tax credit auditor in the nation, our files came back with no corrections. And I've not seen that before in all the years I've been in housing. So they did a phenomenal job on this lease up. And we've really been pushing hard at being the tax credit expert for this region because that's where a lot of the dollars come in. Just bringing those private dollars into the community is hugely important. And then when we use tax credits on a project, either all or a portion have to be at 60% below median income. There can be another portion in some cases that are market, but you have to house as many as the tax credits require at below 60% of area median income. Next.
So that's the qualification you're talking about. They
You have to
they have to be
prove,
below that 60%.
yes. And the income certification that we do is under IRS rules, and so it's quite stringent. We even take into account like gig income and if they have money on Venmo, Cash App, that kind of thing.
What are some things that would disqualify somebody from qualifying for it?
Well, the first thing is too much money. So if you don't meet the income requirements, that's it. But then we also do screen. We try and screen in rather than screening out. We have a couple of mandatory items that screen you out immediately, which is if you've ever manufactured meth in assisted housing before, or if you are a lifetime sexual offender, we can't house you. Other than that, we look for mitigating factors and we try and screen people in. Mitigating factors would be things like they've gone through treatment, they've gone through anger management training, they've had, they've been through drug court perhaps, and taken some steps to get their lives back on the right track. And then we will give them a chance. We do screen out if we believe that they will be a threat to any other residents in the property. So we want to maintain the safety of the other residents. So really just criminal background screening and the income. And then it's a tiny bit more complex than that because each of the funders puts a restriction on who goes into the property. And so for lack of a better term, sometimes we're trying to find the square peg to go in the round hole. It's complex. I'm not, I'm trying to operate within a system that exists. And so sometimes it's frustrating, but we do have to meet all of the set asides. So if we have 20 units set aside for homelessness, we have to have 20 for homelessness. And if the funders want us to have 20 homeless seniors and we have more families, we still have to meet the 20 homeless seniors unless we ask for changes, which are you can get sometimes, depending on the funder.
So because these are federal tax credits that you're receiving, do you have to follow federal guidelines? Are they instituted in this program?
Yes, absolutely. The manuals are massive. We all get certified to do tax credits.
So citizenship plays a role. I heard we had a comment today, Wednesday, we had a comment yesterday that under federal guidelines, it needs to be citizen.
So
is that
interesting?
Correct?
Depends on the program. Some programs, yes, some programs, no. For the HUD programs, it's interesting because everybody thinks that there's a lot of people on in Section 8 that are not citizens. The HUD program regulations are the strictest. And so there have to be citizens in the house. Everybody's a citizen, or we have to prorate the rent because not everyone is a citizen. And that is actually in the hopper to change. And we're just waiting for those changes to come down. So in some cases, we do have a few households who the children are citizens, but the parent is not. And so the rent is prorated. They don't get the full subsidy. And that I hear is going to be changing. Tax credits do not ask us to ask citizenship, but we do typically layer Section 8 with tax credits, and we do check. The Section 8 program is connected to ICE, and we have to actually go into a federal system and check what their status is. So why do low-income housing tax credits matter? We really can't build these properties very well without them. They're desperately needed. And they were recently increased under this administration. We had an increase in tax credits, so that's a really great thing. And obviously, if we don't have enough housing, then you get all the conditions that happen to communities. So we truly believe that housing is fundamental. And when you have adequate housing, there's just benefits that roll from that, right? Including being able to fill our employees' positions, right? The workforce. Next slide, please. So let's talk about our new project. The next project is to be called The Landing at Goldfinch Grove. And we selected that name because, first of all, you need a good name to get the attention of the people that are reviewing the applications. You got to get something that'll stick in their brain because we're competing. And the goldfinch is the state bird, and the food and nesting ground of the goldfinch is the birch tree. And so with this property, which is located just across from Roy Morse Park and directly on the canal, what we've envisioned is a nature path directly along the canal, lined by birch trees, where the residents of this community can connect with nature and find healing in that manner. And so that's the reason for the name. Next slide. This is the current layout that we have, that we've applied to all of the state agencies for funding. We went in heavy on 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms instead of 3s on this project. And the way that we decided which size units is I took who applied for Sunrise Village, and I put percentages against the 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms. And then we used the same percentages of 1s, 2s, and 3s on this project because that was the most recent data that we had on need for who was looking for housing. And gosh, on recent waitlist openings, the most recent is pretty old, really, because we don't have enough voucher funds to open the waitlist right now. But when we did open, we had over 400,000 elderly folks looking for housing. And we just, everywhere we turn, we keep seeing higher levels of elderly needing housing. So we're really paying attention to that. So we've put quite a few more 1 bedrooms in here. So it'd be 31 1 bedrooms and 29 2 bedrooms and 14 3 bedrooms. And then the yellow that you see on there would be the community center. And then those are garden beds, community gardens in the middle, a playground, of course, and then just some softscape. So the idea is also then to have that birch path around the edge that you can see to bring nature into it. Of course, we have the required fire department turnaround. And then because this property is on the diking system, we have also allowed for a diking turnaround at the end of the road coming in. And we've been coordinating with them as well to make sure that they get what they need to maintain the dike. Next slide, please. These are some of the layouts of the 1 and 2 bedrooms. They're not huge, but they're serviceable. And we try and make them big enough that we don't run into problems with inspections. We do regular inspections on our properties twice a year, and we have inspection standards that we have to meet. And so we've learned from those how to design so that people can live and meet the inspection standards. Next slide. This is just more layouts of the 3 bedroom and then the community center where we would have a community room and kitchen, an office for our resident services, small meeting room, property manager's office, a computer room, of course, and then a laundry room. And there's also another laundry room designed on the property. Next. So this is what we're proposing that looks like. We work very hard to develop to the environment that we're in. It's a little bit more expensive. I have to say, it's more expensive to design this way. We could design some ugly, cheap looking boxes, right? But I don't think this community would be happy with that. We get tons of comments about how good Sunrise Village looks, and a lot of people worry that when we develop affordable housing, it's going to bring down the values of the housing around it. That's not what we're here to do. And typically our housing looks as good or better than anything else in the market. And that's intentional. We're trying to design something for the long term that the community can be proud of. That when you drive by, you don't know that it's affordable housing, but yet it will provide affordable housing for the next 40 years. And so since this was previously farmland, we are, it was actually the Rabbit Run stables. If for anybody that's been here a long time, people used to go horseback riding there. So we really tried to keep kind of that farm aesthetic with the porches that you see. And then on the next slide, the community center, we've designed it to try and bring in that barn aesthetic. And if you notice, there are solar panels on top of the buildings. We are trying to put solar on all of our properties. We have put solar on Sunrise Village. We're paying the utilities, but the solar is bringing down the utility bills. We just did that recently on an elderly rehab acquisition in Pacific County, and our first utility bill came back with like a $4,000 credit. So it's, we're really trying hard to get solar on everything. It really does pay to help bring down the bills. Next slide. All right, so how do we fund this? It's expensive, I'm not gonna lie, for lots of different reasons, and I can go into that as much as you'd like me to. So the tax credit investor, we're looking at them to bring in 18 million. That's the chunk of the money. We've asked Commerce for $5 million. And we have a meeting with them on January 6th where they're going to tell us the outcome of our funding application. I don't want to jinx anything, super hopeful because they don't usually schedule a meeting to say no. We will have a conventional mortgage. We've also applied for CHIP funding, which is through the state as well, and that's for the infrastructure to put in the sewer and water. HASWA is intending to defer some of our development fee, so that instead of getting paid up front for the work that we do, we only get paid if we run the property right and there's cash at the end of the day. So that's our contribution. We have received $200,000 from the Furstenberg Foundation. And we do have a gap of 1 million. I did skip over the 1/10 of 1% tax revenue that we have in hand for this project, and that's the sales tax revenue from Longview. And so the ask to the county is we are hoping that you can come in with $1 million from recording fees or whatever affordable housing funds that you have, which also helps to show the commitment from the local community on this project. So that's what we've come here to ask.
Sunrise, was it all dock fees? Was it some 1406, however we did it?
Let me look really quick. Sunrise Village, I believe, was all document recording fees.
We did Sunrise and Campus Towers.
We
And that was
did,
all dock?
I think, a portion of Campus Towers. We used a combination of document recording fees and 1406 funds. And then I think for Haswas, we used document recording
Dock
fees.
fees.
We did use 1406 funds for the 60,000 in supportive services.
Okay.
So we are using that there. And we, right now, we currently have available in 1406 funds about 500,000.
In 1406 funds.
Mm-hmm. And about 1.4 million in document recording fees.
So if we are funded on this project, we would begin finalizing the design in January and hope to be under construction by September. And so any funds committed by the county, we would not be invoicing until about September, after September.
What is your overhead, so to speak, at Sunrise right now? Do you know what your administrative costs are for that?
Gosh, I have a slide on our administrative expenses. 30? No. I have it by overall agency, what our administrative expenses are. I don't have it by the property itself, but they're pretty low at the property. All we have is a half-time services person, a full-time management person, and then maintenance. Our maintenance crew works everywhere on all of our properties, and so we just bill as needed to the property. But I'd be happy to get that information for you.
You just anticipate it being very similar at the
Absolutely. This one would have a full-time management and probably half-time services. We have some higher income levels in this property. It's not all 30%ers in the Goldfinch. And so we wouldn't need a full-time service person, even though it's 74 units. We were hoping to try and capture some of workforce. A lot of our people do work and they are having a hard time finding housing that they can afford.
So you spoke to the architecture and to the look of the units. Can you talk to what type of amenities are going to be on the inside? We're not talking granite countertops. What does the inside look like?
I wish we could afford granite countertops because they last longer. We typically do laminate. Our properties are nice but basic. So we do use vinyl, wood look vinyl flooring in all of our properties because it lasts a lot longer than carpeting. In Sunrise Village, for the first time, we put in dishwashers. We'll see how that goes. And we do have mini splits in the properties. That's part of the Evergreen standards, and really necessary at this point because it's getting hot. But it's just basic. We have washers and dryers programmed for the elderly units, and we did that at Sunrise as well. We put in the washers and dryers for the elderly, but everybody else goes to the common laundry room. They're good units. I would live in the units. They're not luxury units.
Sunrise looks very good from the outside all the time.
Thank you.
It's very well kept up.
We take a lot of pride in keeping our units kept up to market standards or above, which is challenging when you have trees land on the roof, like they did last night.
Gina, how much do we have competing for this, or do we even have an idea at this point in time?
Competing for
People asking for,
funding.
yeah, out of 1406 and Doc. Any idea?
1406 is rare. Most of the requests we've seen recently are for that consolidated homeless grant,
Okay,
which can't be used for capital type expenses. And so
Right.
that's where our document
the
recording
doc fees
fees are
come
able
in.
to be used for that, as well as the 1406 funds.
so this is really pretty much the only project right at this point in time.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
How do we acquire 1406 funds?
It's a portion of the state's sales tax that we're able to, if the county says we want to reclaim this, it's a percentage, then we passed a resolution a couple years ago to do that. And so it's a portion of the state sales tax that comes back to us. It's limited and we max out at what we're able to reclaim about November, December of the state fiscal year. We usually max out on what we're able to reclaim. But
So
it's,
we exhaust that fund this year. It'll be replenished next year.
right, so it will stop collecting for the rest of the state fiscal year, and then it starts back in July. It'll come back to us again until we've hit the cap, and then it stops again
Document recording fees, that's just as we're processing.
as recording. Yep.
The projects I'm aware of out of Doc, I think of Campus Towers. I think that was right around 800,000.
Mhm.
Sunrise Village, something real
okay.
close to that.
Mhm.
We just saw an extension of the contract on the Kelso one. They're doing through cap of about 645.
695. Yep.
Yeah. And then Habitat, was that Doc recording fees?
That one is a combination of document recording fees and 1406 funds.
So we have tried to use these projects for housing as much as we can, right?
Mhm.
Kind of projects.
We have in the last several years.
And
Mhm.
they're available to like entities like Hoswa, but if a private builder come in, it's not available to them, right?
We have
They-
there's income requirements, so similar to what
Yeah,
she's talking about with the 60% AMI.
I guess a
the-
better way to say that, they'd have to fit all the things that she's trying to fit for them to qualify.
Yeah, they would both have to
And they
qualify
don't
for the
typically do
funding.
that because they're
Serving
building
low.
them for profit
Mhm.
type thing.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
I am able to answer your question. Our overall administrative fees, our administrative expenses for our entire budget is 12%.
For the whole thing.
Our
properties.
whole agency.
Well, the one thing I like about these types of programs compared to other types of programs is creating inventory and it's creating places for people to live, which that is one of the main issues that we have is inventory.
I agree.
Because we give money to programs that we see nothing. It's like, what did we get for that?
Yeah, like I said, our history has been, that we've gone ahead and put these funds into these building some inventory and housing, so I don't think we've had an issue with it. I may disagree on some philosophy things, but I think overall, it's better than some of the places we get asked for these funds, to your point.
I agree.
So you looking for a decision from us today, or you just wanted to bring us up to speed on what we have?
Whatever the board is comfortable with. I know Jennifer's willing to answer any further questions about the project, what that looks like. We can, if the board wants to decide on it today, we could do that. If we want to take some time and circle back in a couple of weeks, in case there's further questions, we could do that too. So.
It would help our application if there was some sort of commitment, because I can call the state and say, hey, we've got a commitment for this.
I'm good with if we decide to move forward today.
We did that with Kelso on their project. It's still a long ways out to, because I know these don't happen quickly. And you're not even expecting the need this till probably
It's
September, I
September.
think you said. And
Correct.
over that period of time, this will build, depending on how active the market is. We have seen rates go down, so maybe it'll build a little faster. I don't know.
Yeah, we wouldn't actually invoice for any of the funds until September, but in order to close the project on financing early next year, we'd have to have a commitment so that
Yeah.
the tax credit investor would actually close.
If we want to do that, I'd probably ask for it to be a formal motion because it's kind of a dollar amount.
Go ahead. Make a motion to approve the Hazwa $1 million ask for the Goldfinch, or the landing at Goldfinch Grove.
Okay, we have a motion. This is a public meeting, so if we have anything that people want to say, you're more than welcome.
Thank you for the opportunity to ask a couple of questions. I'm back on the previous presentation. You say that you have 543 housing units. So that's a substantial assets throughout, is that throughout the counties, right? So as you gave all of these financial terms, the value of those has increased significantly, the same as the rest of the housing, if they've been well maintained in a market. So that is an asset that you have, right? So what is the value of your assets? I mention that because you present this as though it's a standalone, every project is new, but if we're private enterprise, we're depending upon our assets as a foundation for getting any money.
Rochelle, can you bring me those financial slides back? I took my presentation down, so it had some more information in it.
Sure.
The assets are significantly more than they were prior.
Because we have them hidden, but you just.
Have that here.
I'm trying to get a context here in the overall housing market. My second question would be, you said you have 1,500 vouchers?
So we have 1,600 vouchers, but we have 1,500 leased because we've run out of money.
So when you have vouchers, but you ran out, what's that mean?
Well, HUD allocates a certain number of vouchers and our allocation is 1,600, but they also allocate a budget and you can't lease above your budget. And so our budget has been expended because for the last 2 years, we've been on continuing resolutions with no cost increases. And in the meantime, the rents have gone up more. And so our voucher, we've actually decreased the number of people we're serving because each unit is costing more and we have less dollars coming in from the feds.
Right. So your assets are, what did you come up with amount?
I didn't. I don't have that data with me, but I'd be happy to email it to you. I'm
I
sorry.
think the commissioners would be interested. as an
Absolutely.
overall And
And it's also on our webpage. We post all of our audited financials and our 2025 no findings audited financials are up on our website right now.
And from a county standpoint, your properties are tax exempt, correct?
Yes.
So we don't get any benefit from all of these assets other than the housing benefits.
We do pay Cowlitz County pilot, which is
Pilot.
payment in lieu of taxes. So that's supposed to compensate for some of those, but
Okay, you are doing that.
yes.
Okay, so with all of these vouchers, similarly, the values went up on these historic properties. So you're still bringing in a significant amount of income, even though it may be 25 or 30 or what a percent of the market rate, correct?
So the vouchers are more of an in and out in our budget because it's revenue that comes in from HUD and it goes out to private landlords. We do have some project-based within the properties, but most of the voucher goes out to private landlords to the tune of over $1 million a month. That's injected directly into the economies of the communities we serve.
Okay, so then the 543 units that you have, not many of those are on the voucher program is what I interpret.
Some of them have something called project-based vouchers in them, which is where you attach the voucher to the unit. But like Sunrise Village, 20 of the 40 units have the voucher attached to the unit. But not all of them because HUD only allows us to project-base so many vouchers.
Okay, so
But yes, that is, getting the vouchers on the unit is the mix that makes it possible to do this because we have rent limits. Each of these different funders gives us a rent limit and we can't charge more than that rent. And so the voucher and the tenants can't pay that rent, right? So these are really affordable rents. The typical revenue that would run a property is not coming in. The vouchers can give us a little bit more revenue on those units than somebody who doesn't have a voucher. And so that does help us to cash flow the units. But not all of our properties cash flow, I have to tell you. The tax credits typically do, and they help with the other properties that don't.
okay. So any of us that had assets, we'd be having those assets leveraged against a new construction.
Oh,
So-
absolutely. Our assets are leveraged.
They are.
So when I first got here, Haswa was in a bit of a pickle financially. And especially in our voucher program, we were negative net assets. And so the financials I read before I took the job looked different than the financials I read 6 months after I got there. It was a bit of a surprise. And they were pretty thin. We had some troubles. And since then, I do have a slide I wish I could show you where we've increased cash. And so our assets have increased and our cash has increased directly from good management. And tax credit investors will not invest with any agency unless they see at least $1 million in liquidity that they can leverage against. And so it's incumbent upon us to maintain really solid financials so that we can attract those investors that will bring in the majority of the funds.
Okay, those were magic words. Good management for our county commissioners, taking care of our money. We want to make sure it's going to a sound base, just in a community perspective. So I want to conclude with one other thing that said, elections have consequences, and our new HUD secretary has definitely made the statement, HUD funds go to citizens. So that's crystal clear.
We're just waiting for the guidance from HUD. We follow all HUD regulations.
Very good, thank you.
So you have these assets that have appreciated. When you say you're leveraging your assets, why don't you take out equity loans on those to fund future projects?
It's a great question. A lot of housing authorities do leverage their assets in order to get there. We honestly don't have the assets to leverage. So I mentioned that there were financial problems when I first got here. I'll be here almost 7 years now. And a lot of our properties are really aimed at the poorest of the poor. really low income folks. And so they're not generating that revenue. Eagle Point in Wahkiakum County. Right now, I'm going to the legislature asking for money to re-roof the project because it's not generating enough to fund our replacement reserves. We have the Sylvester downtown. Does not ever generate enough money to meet all the reserves that the funders are asking for. Typically, for affordable housing properties, you're trying to fund the replacement reserve and the operating reserve so that you have enough to get by. But typically after about 20 years of service, you need another cash reinvestment, which is called a resyndication on tax credits. Country Run is a tax credit, and they are in the process of trying to resyndicate now because they need to rehab the complex and there's not enough money in it to actually rehab the complex. Affordable housing properties don't make money. They don't make money. And the way you leverage properties is if you can show a balance sheet and you can show that there would be someone out there that would want to purchase that property and make money off of it, right? But we're not making money on rents. That's the difference with our properties. That's why it's more expensive to build these properties, because you don't have the same index at the beginning. So when you look at commercial properties and they're trying to sell commercial properties, right, they'll talk to you about the cap rate. Well, the cap rate is the income minus the expenses. Well, they're looking at how much income they can generate off the rents, right? And so then the cap rate goes up if they can have higher rents. So they then invest their own money into projects knowing that they'll get the money back out over the years. We already know at the get-go, we're not going to get money out over the years. And so all the investments up front, that's part of why these properties cost more. That plus prevailing wage, evergreen standards, and the other things that public entities have to deal with. But it's just a completely different ballgame. We're not making money on the properties.
The tax credit is the incentive to do this for an investor.
So tax credits did change that game a little bit. We have something in tax credits called a waterfall. And what it is we run the property, and then at the end of the year, if there's money left over, there's a list of where that money can go. And so it goes for the investor services fees first. The investor gets their money first. And then if you have deferred developer fees like we're proposing to do in Goldfinch, that comes next. And then if there's loans, you pay additional on loans. And if you run it really well over a period of years, toward the end of the years, you can start making some money. So Lilac Place in Woodland is 2 years from its 15-year exit on tax credits. And that property is part of the reason that Hoswa had financing problems, because there was a not in my backyard lawsuit when they developed that project that cost the agency quite a bit of money. When that project was started, it wasn't doing very well. That project has now paid all of its developer fees, and it's starting to pay into the loans that the agency gave the property to get it built. And so it's doing really well. It's flowing really well. And so if you run these right, they can help to subsidize the other properties that don't make any money, like Phoenix House. Phoenix House, it's just always in the hole and always will be in the hole. It was designed that way. It's mission work. So I personally love tax credits. I'm kind of weird that way. I think they're fun, even though they have a lot of regulations and it means higher risk with the regulations. They also bring a benefit. They bring big chunks of money into a community, allow us to build projects that will stand the test of time for the community. And then if we're lucky, we might make a little money on the back end that will help to fund some of our other expenses.
So the benefit to us, the county, is we have inventory, affordable housing, the pilot, and you guys worry about the finances.
And on tax credits, we pay taxes. Tax credit properties are taxable entities. We file a tax return every year.
I think you said these have to stay for 40 years at this purpose.
Yes, the
So if-
IRS says 15, but the state says 40.
The state says 40, so if it's 15-year mark or whatever, if it was failing and a private group wanted to take it over, could they even convert it to a regular?
So
Do
we
you know where
write,
I'm going? I don't even know if they could convert it to where it would actually give them a cap rate or cash flow that they would make it work.
they couldn't because there's the affordability agreement with the state for 40 years. But also, we write into those agreements, the partnership agreement with the investor, that we have right of first refusal. So at 15 years, when the investor exits, then those properties become housing authority properties. And then we maintain them forever because that's our mission. That's what we do.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't even stop at 40. It's just at 40, you'd probably need something to keep them going for another 40, like a rehab.
Well, I was just trying to think through Ron's, question and if it's limited to what you can make on it, it really doesn't. I would guess that after that commitment is gone, that's when the value really takes off because then a private investor could take it and actually do a return.
After 40 years, after you've met those regulatory agreements, yes,
Yeah.
then it does become a valuable entity. And we've also written protections in because there were some tax credits that were being picked up by investors in China. Wasn't good.
Did I spur another question, Ron?
Yeah, so that just fits in a little detail. So you sold the Blackstone Apartments back, what, 5, 7 years ago? Something like that. So that was an asset, or how did that work into this?
That was more than 7 years ago. I wasn't here.
Oh, you weren't? Okay,
No.
before your time. Okay.
It was.
So how did that able to be sold because it exceeded its 40-year life
The
or?
Blackstone did not have any affordability agreements against it. It was just a market property.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any more comments, questions? Yeah.
Have to give our name, Mark Smith. Just a question, just from business standpoint, I came into your meeting and I think it's a good presentation of what I did see, but if we're not looking at something making a profit of some sense and it's locked in for 40 years and it is a building, you have depreciation. So in 40 years, the value necessarily won't go up unless the buildings are maintained. So how do you cover that if you're not able to keep up with the amount of cost for maintenance?
So great question. And we do depreciation on our financials. We do government financials. We have layers of reserves that are set up at the beginning of these properties, especially the tax credit properties. And some of those are funded by equity, and that's the money coming in from the tax credit investor. So for instance, Lilac Place has a replacement reserve, an operating reserve, and a services reserve. And so when we need to do big repairs, we dip into those funds and we have to get the investor's permission to use them. But for instance, we can replace roofs, that type of thing. We work really hard to have replacement reserves on all of our properties. It's just that some of them are so thin that we can't always get that. As the property in Wahkiakum County, the rents are so low there that we just can't ever make enough, and it's project-based, but we can't ever make enough money to really get the reserves. I think I have 50,000 in reserves and it's going to be a $200,000 roof.
And the one other question was the rents being lower. How do you regulate the rent in increase or stability for that 40-year period? It seems like that's a challenge.
Well, it's regulated for us.
By whom?
The Washington State Housing Finance Commission for a tax credit, and by Commerce for other properties, and by HUD. We have a lot of masters.
All government. Thank you.
Okay. Any other? Good questions. Okay, we have a motion on the floor, so I'll call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
Thank you so much. I really
thanks
appreciate
for
it.
coming in.
Thank you.
Anything else today? I think we covered everything. We all good?
I wanted to see if we could have executive session for qualifications of a applicant for 5 minutes.
Sure. So we'll go to executive session, qualifications of applicant, 5 minutes. Back from executive session, no decisions rendered. I think that's the end of business for today. Okay, we will adjourn. Thank you.